Hello everyone, I'm your hostess with the mostest 8-second gaming, and in today's video we are going to be talking about the best strategy to climb on every single map that is in the ranked rotation currently. We have 3 maps and they all have different playstyles, different ways that you're going to want to climb on them, so we are going to be breaking that down so you can start to climb today. But just quickly, if you guys are looking to take your Apex skill to the next level, you have to check out the GameLeap website right now. Over there, we have top level coaches creating the best, most highly informative guides to make you the best player you could possibly be. No matter what you struggle with, we have solutions for you because we have hundreds of guides covering legend guides, gun guides, fodder reviews, and much more. So click the link in the description, pick yourself up a membership, and start to improve today. But okay, with that covered and out of the way, let's hop back into things. And the first map that I want to talk about is, of course, Kings Canyon. KC is a very beloved map. It's been in the game since the game came out. It was the first map that was ever in the game. It is a fun map, but it is not a good map. The game just outgrew Kings Canyon, and it really feels like no matter what changes Respawn brings in, it's still a really tough map to climb on, so that's why I want to cover it first. Now, when it comes to Kings Canyon, you almost never want to fight. The only times you are ever going to want to fight is the early game and the super late game. KC is very small, very condensed. The POIs are almost right next to each other, so it's very easy for third parties to happen. So if you start a fight, it is more than likely going to get third, fourth, fifth, and even sixth partied. That is why when it comes to KC, I recommend that you drop in a safe location that has a decent amount of loot for your entire team that is right next to a spot that 2 teams are dropping in. You want a decent amount of loot because you still want to have some stuff for your team that'll make it into the game, and you don't really want to be struggling and trying to find scraps here and there. But also, you want to be dropping next to 2 teams because those 2 teams are going to fight, and if their POI doesn't have enough loot for 2 teams, they are going to be struggling. Once they start to fight, you and your team can then make your way over to that POI and third party it, clean up the kills, and get potentially even 6 KP if you did it properly. And if done properly, you should easily be able to win that fight because they are going to be struggling on loot and you and your team are going to have a decent amount of loot because you dropped in a good spot. But getting this early KP is huge because it means you do not have to fight in the mid game. The mid game on KC is the riskiest part of the game. Everyone is going to be dying left, right, and center because they're going to be trying to throw themselves at fights because they want KP. But once somebody starts shooting some bullets, everybody in that vicinity is going to just flock to those fights. And if you get caught up in one, you are more than likely going to die, or you're going to be wasting a ton of resources that you do not need to be wasting. You're going to be popping bats, you're going to be popping med kits, you're going to be popping ultimates or abilities or jump towers or something to just get out, and you don't have to if you don't have to fight. You already have a bit of KP because of the early game, so just wait the mid game out. Let the other teams fight it out, let the other teams do what they're going to do, and just you do you. But once you come to the end game, this is where things are going to kick up again because this is where you can start to secure even more KP. Some people don't like the waiting till end game because they're a little bit worried that they're going to fall behind in kill points, but trust me, if done properly, you will not fall behind in KP at all. Because you weren't fighting, you were able to get yourself a solid position in the end game spots. You were able to set up, get that kind of locked down and ready to go. But the teams that were fighting and were throwing themselves into the 4th, 5th, 6th parties are going to be panicking, trying to get out of zone and into a spot that is viable. This is where you can really take advantage of things because you're going to be able to use your better positioning in order to just completely decimate teams as they come in. KC has a ton of really rough zone endings, and if you're able to put yourself in a god spot, you're going to be able to take advantage of teams very easily. Now, this is easiest done with a defensive legend like a Watson or Caustic, or maybe even a Rampart if done properly, but it is not necessary, and you can use a bunch of different legend combinations in order to do so. But to recap, land next to 2 teams, third party them, avoid the mid game, wait for end game, and take advantage of teams that are panicking, and then that is how you're going to climb on KC. But now we can move on into the next map, and that is going to be World's Edge. Now, World's Edge is one of the better maps for ranked, but people still don't really know how to play it. There are going to be a lot of POIs that are still very strong, very lootable, very high loot density that are going to be completely free. A lot of teams are going to get baited into the high traffic areas, the POIs like Monument or Lava Siphon or even Big Mod. Now, apart from Fragment or Monument or whatever you want to call it these days, those POIs are actually semi-decent. Mod has the Rampart weapons, Siphon has all the cargo bots and a really high density plenty of loot, but there are still a lot of other really solid POIs that are going to be free because a bunch of teams are going to be dropping in those high density areas like I mentioned before. So drop alone and let the other teams that hot dropped kill each other off. You do not have to do anything up until the end game. Now yes, I do understand that some people might find this playstyle boring, but remember that this is going to be covering the most consistent and best ways to climb, not necessarily the most fun in quotation marks, but fun is also subjective. Me personally, I find the really high chaotic end games more fun, so I don't mind waiting until those. And also climbing consistently is fun to me, so that's just kind of a playoff there. But with this playstyle, you are going to be able to make it to end game very consistently. You're going to be able to rack up a bunch of placement points, and then again, like on Kings Canyon, you're going to be able to take advantage of teams that weren't able to set themselves up early, and you are going to be able to get a ton of kill points in the end game. Now this might take a little bit of getting used to, because if you're not used to not interacting with any other teams up until the end game, you might get distracted every now and then. You might want to try and loot something that you shouldn't loot. You might want to try to push a fight that you shouldn't push. There is going to be a little bit of a learning curve with it, but if you take a really strong defensive legend that's able to scan the ring consoles, able to set you and your team up for the end game, you are going to be able to get there very consistently, get a lot of KP on the end game, and get a lot of placement points, which is going to lead to you climbing very consistently on World's Edge days. Now World's Edge is probably the most straightforward map when it does come to its playstyle, because it's going to be very easy. Just don't interact with anybody, wait until the end game, and then kill everybody off there. But just because it's straightforward doesn't mean it's going to be easy. A lot of teams like to throw themselves at somebody if they do see them sitting for the end game. They think it's an isolated fight. They think it's a good idea to push a caustic team when they're all bunkered up. There's a lot of really weird plays that are being made. So if you're going to do this playstyle, I highly recommend that you take highly aggressive poke weapons like a marksman rifle or a sniper rifle. My go-to would probably be the G7 Scout or the Sentinel, because a charged Sentinel can hit like a truck and deter people from pushing. Now these are not necessary because teams might hear the shots and want to push those as well, but at the same time, having a poke stick that you can kind of keep people away with is also a very good idea and makes it a little bit harder for teams to push, especially if you are hitting shots. And if they do decide to actually push you and you're able to split them up, because maybe you headshot somebody with a charged Sentinel, now they got to heal, now their teams are split up, it's going to be a little bit easier for you to win the fights. But that can change with a bunch of different things, like the type of people in your lobby, the type of people that you're playing with, the type of legends that you're playing, the type of legends other people are playing. There's a bunch of different things that go into it, but just be ready for somebody to throw themselves at you, even though it might not be the smartest fight for them. But that's World's Edge and Kings Canyon covered, so let's move into the last map, and that is going to be Broken Moon. Now, I'm going to be honest with you guys. I absolutely love the changes that they've done to Broken Moon. I think Broken Moon is one of the best maps in the game right now, and actually, potentially, I would love to see it come into competitive like ALGS. But because of all the changes that they've done, they've made it the best ranked map for you to be able to climb on. There's tons of POIs that are very stacked in loot. There's tons of rotation options. There's tons of spots to play. There's tons of options for you. But because it's also a very good sized map, you can take a ton of isolated fights very easily, which is going to be good for the highly aggressive teams. Now, the last two maps, you guys might have caught a trend where it's just kind of waiting around and not getting third party, but with Broken Moon, because of the size of it, you are actually going to be able to take a lot more fights. And the most consistent way that I have found on Broken Moon is to take a lot of edge fights. If you can run a recon legend and just continuously hit the UAVs to find isolated fights on the edge of ring and just continuously knock teams out, you are going to be able to get a ton of RP in doing so. So my favorite thing to do in the early game is to locate a POI that does have a recon beacon. And if a team decides to go there with you, even better, because it's going to allow you to get a really nice off drop fight. And if you're trying to play aggressive and you can't win a fight off drop, you might have some other things that you need to work on. But once you win that fight off drop, you scan the recon beacon, you find the most isolated fight that you can, and you head straight there. But once you're able to cut them off, you fight them, you take their loot, you get even more KP, and then scan a recon beacon again. Find the next closest one. And then it just becomes super flexible and up to your team, because if you see another isolated fight that you feel that you can win, go and push that. But if everybody is super grouped up and you don't feel like you can take an isolated fight, you don't really want to risk getting third partied and wasting your KP, then you can go to an endgame position and just wait for the end game. Like I said, Broken Moon is very flexible, and they've done so many fantastic changes with it that it opens up so many different playstyles. And Broken Moon is another one that you absolutely could play for endgame if you wanted to, but because of the size and the rotation options that you do have when it comes to Broken Moon, taking isolated fights is definitely going to be a very solid option for you as well, so that's why I wanted to highlight it on this one. My team and I have found a lot of success taking some super isolated fights on the edge of ring, racking up a lot of KP and then moving in from there. But let me know your favorite way to climb on each map in the comments down below. And if you guys want to stay up to date with the latest greatest Apex Legends tips, tricks, and news, don't forget to smash the like and subscribe button. Thanks all for watching once again, mates, and gaming. I'll see you guys in the next one.